Dollar stores looked the same everywhere. Fluorescent lights humming, aisles too narrow, colors too bright, air faintly sweet from plastic and cleaning spray. I never thought anything strange would happen in one. But that night, the store felt wrong. I'd stopped in after work, a late shift that left me tired enough to just grab a basket and wander without thinking. The place was nearly empty, just the cashier half asleep at her counter, a flickering security camera, and the echo of my own shoes on tile. I was in aisle 4, staring at shelves of paper towels and detergent, when I felt someone behind me. Not close, but near enough that I became aware of the space at my back. I turned slow and saw a woman. She was older, but not frail. Her coat hung loose, too heavy for the season. Her eyes moved before her head did, darting like she was checking every corner of the aisle. When she noticed me looking, she smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't warm the face. "Where's your family, dear?" she asked softly. It was such a strange first question that I froze. "I'm just picking up a few things," I said. She stepped closer, fingertips brushing the shelf. "You shouldn't be here alone." Not at night. The way she said it didn't sound like concern. It sounded like a rule. Like I had broken something by being there. I tried to leave the aisle, but she followed, her shoes whispering just behind mine, turning whenever I turned. Every time I glanced back, her eyes were already waiting, like she knew the exact second I would look. By the time I reached the front of the store, the cashier was gone. No sound of scanning, no voice. Just the old woman standing too still at the end of the aisle. I set my basket down, empty now, and headed for the door. But before I pushed it open, I heard it. A gentle knock, from the inside of the glass, like someone was on the wrong side of the door, asking to be let out. When I turned, the woman was closer. Her coat had slipped open just enough for me to see her hands. They were empty, except for a single plastic baby rattle. Where had she gotten that? My throat tightened. The knock came again, sharper this time. From behind the door I was about to step through. I didn't push through the glass door, not with that knocking, not with her standing there watching me. Instead, I turned back, pretending to study a shelf of candy. My pulse was too loud in my ears. When I finally dared to look again, the door was clear. No figure on the other side, no sound of knuckles on glass, and the woman, gone. I hurried to the counter, hoping the cashier had come back, but the stool was empty, receipt tape curling like a paper tongue. The register light glowed green in silence. It felt like I was the only one left in the store. I stepped outside. The night air was damp, the parking lot slick from an earlier drizzle. The store's neon sign buzzed, flickering every few seconds, painting the rows of cars in pale white, then shadow. My car was parked farther back, against the curb, and I wasn't alone. The dark blue sedan wasn't there when I'd come in, but now it was. Engine idling, headlights off, windows tinted too dark to see inside. I stood still, waiting for movement. The engine purred. Nothing else. Every step I took toward my car, I checked over my shoulder. The sedan didn't move, but it didn't leave either. It was parked too close to mine, deliberately, like it wanted me to walk right past its doors. Halfway across the lot, I felt it again. That sense of being observed. I turned sharply, up on the store's roofline, just at the edge where the neon glow died. Something shifted. A coat, a pale face. Too far to make out clearly, but enough to know someone was watching. I stopped walking. The sedan's engine revved once, low. Warning or invitation, I couldn't tell. And then, from inside my car, through the fogged back window, a shape moved. Something or someone was already sitting in the back seat. At first, I thought it was a trick of the glass. Condensation blurring shapes, reflections warping shadows. But the more I stared, the more certain I became. Someone was in my back seat, They weren't moving much. Just a pale outline, still and waiting. The kind of stillness that made me think they knew I'd noticed. The blue sedan next to my car revved again, this time longer, louder, like it was calling attention, like it wanted me to choose, look at the idling car or at my own. I froze, halfway between the store and the curb. The lot was empty, just rows of silent cars glistening under buzzing lights. The neon open sign behind me hissed once and went dark. I pulled out my phone. No service, not even a single bar. The sound of the sedan's engine cut suddenly, leaving the lot too quiet. And then, click. A lock popped inside my own car. The driver's door eased open, not wide, just an inch. Enough to break the seal of air and send a faint interior light spilling across the wet pavement. I whispered to myself, "Don't go closer. Don't." But my keys were in there, my bag, everything I needed to get home. I inched forward, step by step, until I was close enough to see my breath in the reflection of the car window. Inside, the figure was clearer now. Not a man, not exactly. It was the old woman from aisle 4. Her coat spread across the seat like shadow, her hands folded in her lap, as though she'd been waiting the entire time. The baby rattle was balanced across her knees, gently swaying with each breath she took. And then she spoke, though her lips barely moved. "Sit." Passenger side. Behind me, tires squealed softly. The sedan's door creaked open. Footsteps touched the wet asphalt. I didn't dare look back. "Sit." Passenger side. Her voice was soft enough to mistake for a thought I'd had myself. The baby rattle on her lap ticked once against her coat, like a tiny clock deciding. Behind me, footsteps drew a line across wet pavement. Measured, coming closer. I didn't turn. I kept my eyes on the cracked rubber of my door seal, the fogged triangle of glass. The driver's door, still resting open that single inch, let out a faint breath of warm air from the cabin. It smelled like dust and something sweet, plastic maybe, new packaging. "Passenger side," the old woman repeated, lips barely moving. "Eyes forward. Do not show him the back of your neck." I found my voice and heard how thin it was. "Who is he?" "A man who isn't a man in the dark," she said. "Some nights he borrows a car." The footsteps slowed, stopped. I let the silence press in until it had weight. Then I lifted my hand and pushed the driver's door shut. Just my fingertips. Just enough for the latch to catch with a small, obedient click. The sound went out across the lot like a pebble in water. It reached the idle sedan and rippled back to me. The old woman's head bent by a fraction, as if listening to the ripple's return. "You're going to walk," she said. "Passenger side. Keep your shoulders square. Keys later." "My bag," I whispered. "Later," she said again, the word warm as breath on glass. "Rules first." I slid along the car's rain-dotted flank until my fingers found the seam of the passenger door. The sedan next to us idled low and steady, a cat purr pretending not to be a growl. I felt eyes behind its tinted glass, level with my waist. I didn't look over. I kept my shoulders set. I followed the silver line of my own door handle like it could guide me by touch. When I reached the far side of my car, the store's light hit my face again. Buzz, flicker. Wet asphalt glittered in strips. The footsteps resumed. Not toward me, parallel to me, pacing, matching. Whoever was there moved when I moved, as if we were reflections in separate panes. "Good," the old woman breathed. "Now walk to the doors. Don't invite, don't decline, don't speak to what you don't name. What if he speaks to me?" "Silence is offense," she said. I started forward. My heartbeat kept counting seconds I didn't ask for. Every 10 steps, the neon sign above the store shivered and spat. My shadow ran ahead, then came back to heel. In the glass of the front doors, I saw myself, small and damp, shoulders squared as instructed. Behind me, the pacing stopped. Then a new sound, knuckles, 2 soft taps, from the inside of the glass doors. I paused. "Keep walking," the woman said from the back seat, though her mouth hadn't moved. 2 taps at the door means we're between hours. It's not for you. I reached the threshold. The automatic doors stayed inert, locked for the night, their sensors blind. The taps came again, gentle, patient. Once, twice. Inside, the cashier's stool sat under a wash of green from the register screen. A paper cup lay on its side on the counter. It rocked slightly and then was still. I raised my hand to shade my eyes, and in the faint reflection, I saw a second figure at my back. Not distinct, just a man-shaped absence where rain should glitter. Silence, I told myself. Fence. At the far end of the storefront, near the carts, a red emergency phone hung on the wall. Old, with a coiled cord like a resting snake. Beyond the glass, it looked too far. A small square of white caught my eye. On the inside of the doors, at knee height, someone had taped a card. After close, do not exit alone. Call. Wait by light. The light, I realized, was a metal pole lamp planted near the handicapped spot, a cone of brightness in an otherwise dim lot. I stood in its spill now without noticing when I'd stepped into it.
"Wait by light," I said under my, as if reading a spell.
"Good," the woman said. Her voice was farther now, muffled by glass and distance. I looked back. My car was darker than before. Somehow she'd vanished without the sound of a door. The sedan idled, and then, at last, went quiet. No engine, no pacing steps, only rain working itself out along gutters. I stood in the cone of light and breathed like the card told me to breathe, slowly, deliberately, as if someone were watching my posture in a mirror. My phone trembled in my hand. A single bar bloomed and disappeared, came back, held. I called the only number that made sense. "Hi," I said when a sleepy voice answered. "I know it's late. Could you just pull up to the doors? Don't park. Keep your lights on me the whole time." "You okay?" my friend asked. "I'm at the dollar store," I said. "I need you to honk twice when you arrive. And please, don't get out." A beat. She woke up with her breath. Leaving now. I put the phone down and watched the sedan. It didn't move. I watched the roofline too, where I thought I'd seen a coat earlier. Nothing. But the lot had the listening feeling of a room after someone tells a secret. I wished I didn't notice that feeling. I wished I didn't believe in it. The neon sign buzzed, flickered, and steadied. In that steady glow, a shape crossed the far edge of the lot where the light didn't reach. It was low to the ground. A shopping cart? Number. It moved like a person on hands and knees might move if they were being careful not to be seen. I blinked hard, and it wasn't there. The first honk came as a relief that felt like warm water. My friend's car turned the corner, headlights high and bright. She rolled right up to the doors and stopped so close the beams painted my shoes. Second honk. A small nod of acknowledgement inside a language we hadn't needed until now. I didn't look right or left. I walked straight ahead, through the light, with my shoulders square and my neck unoffered, counting steps exactly as the neon clicked. 1, 2, 3. Passenger door open. I slid in, shut it, and locked it. My friend peered at me. "Hey," she said, soft. Her eyes flicked toward the back seat. Empty. "Everything okay?" "Later," I said, my throat still tight. "Rules first." "Rules?" "Don't talk in the lot," I said. "Just drive." She drove. The store fell away behind us, its sign shrinking until the flicker was just a pulse in the mirror. When we reached the first red light, She exhaled the question she'd been holding. What happened? I told her pieces. The woman in aisle 4, the rattle, the sedan with its windows too dark, parked nose to nose with my fear, how the store's door knocked from the wrong side, how a card taped to the glass felt like a hand on my shoulder. You sure you're okay? She asked again, but softer. Do you want to crash at my place? I nodded. We passed 2 gas stations, a laundromat with its interior lights off and its machines lit like fish tanks, and a bus stop shelter that held no one. The night had that little left-to-say quiet that comes when most of the town has given up and gone to bed. At the 3rd light, my friend turned down the air. The fan softened. The cabin went still. That's when I heard it. Knock, knock, 2 gentle taps. From our passenger door, inside the car. We looked at each other, breath pausing, eyes searching for normal and not finding it. It's the same sound, I whispered. The doors at the store. My friend leaned forward as if that would help her hear. What does 2 taps mean? Between hours, I said, repeating the old woman's words because they were all I had. Not for us. My friend drove the next 2 blocks with care you could see. When we pulled up to her building, the porch light was on, a friendly square of yellow punched into the night. She parked in the spill of it, left the engine idling, turned to me. Okay, she said, new rule. We go in together. We leave the doors for morning. Agreed. I gathered my breath to open the door, and something small slid from my coat pocket and fell against my knee. A faint plastic clink. I looked down. A baby rattle. Clear handle. Pastel beads. The same kind I'd seen balanced on the old woman's lap. I hadn't picked it up. I didn't own one. But there it was, warm from my pocket, as though it had been near my skin for a while. My friend saw my face change before she saw the rattle itself. Is that? I set it gently in the cup holder, as if it were a live thing that might roll away if I was careless. Okay, she said again, smaller. Inside, and then we figure out what to do with that. We stepped out into the porch light. The night tasted like rain that had made its point and left. Somewhere down the block, a wind chime answered no wind in particular. I locked her car. The beep echoed off brick and back again. We climbed the stairs. Her key turned in the deadbolt, and the chain lifted with a household clink that made the whole evening feel almost ordinary. Almost. From the curb, 2 taps rose, the polite knuckle sound of someone requesting a door. Not from the car. From somewhere farther. From some door we couldn't see. We stood in the threshold and listened. Between hours, I said once more, trying to believe it. Not for us. Then who's it for? My friend asked. A hallway bulb hummed to life overhead. In that small circle of light, motes turned like slow snow. Rules, I said, almost to myself. We're going to have to learn them. We closed the door. We set the lock. We set the chain. We breathed by the light. And in the quiet after, from the kitchen, 2 soft taps answered from inside the apartment. 2 soft taps from inside the kitchen. My friend and I froze in the doorway, bags still slung over our shoulders. The rattle in the cup holder, the porch light at our backs, and now, something waiting inside her apartment. We didn't move. The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked, the silence pressed. Then, tap, tap, gentle, almost polite. We set our things down quietly, like intruders in our own home. My friend whispered, "Do you hear it from the counter?" But I couldn't tell. It wasn't a location, it was just in. I remembered the card at the store doors. Do not exit alone. Call. Wait by light. But what about entering? No card for that. No rules written down. So we made our own. We stayed together, side by side, and stepped into the living room. The lamps were off. The only light was from the hallway bulb overhead. The knock came again, this time louder. Not at the door, at the inside wall, the kitchen wall, the one that backed onto nothing but empty air, a wall that shouldn't have had anyone behind it. We stood still until my eyes adjusted. On the counter where her fruit bowl usually sat was something new. A folded slip of paper, not old, not torn, fresh like it had just been left. My friend picked it up with a shaking hand. She unfolded it slowly, and I leaned close enough to read the words. When you hear 2 taps, don't open. When you hear 3, you must. She stared at me. 3 what? She whispered. I shook my head. But before I could answer, the sound came again. Not 2, 3. Slow, steady. Knock, knock, knock. From inside the kitchen wall, 3 taps. Knock, knock, knock. They came from the kitchen wall. Not the door, not the floor, right where drywall met tile. My friend and I looked at the paper again, as if the ink might rearrange and be kinder. When you hear 2 taps, don't open. When you hear 3, you must. Open what? She whispered. We stood together, side by side. Her kitchen was small, a galley. 1 strip of counter, a sink, a stove. On the wall above the counter hung a cheap metal clock that always ran 3 minutes slow. Under it, the backsplash was white tile. Clean, plain. No hidden seams, no panel to lift. Maybe it means a door, I said. The front? She asked. I shook my head. The taps aren't there. We waited. The refrigerator clicked into a softer hum. The hallway bulb buzzed. Silence settled so quietly, I could hear our breathing answer each other. Then again, 3 taps. A little higher now, closer to the clock. We inched forward. Not brave, just steady. I raised my hand and pressed my palm flat to the tile beneath the clock. Cool. I slid my fingers along the grout. When my ring tapped the wall, the sound came back dull, then suddenly hollow at 1 square. A single tile sounded different. Here, I said. My friend fetched a butter knife. She held it like a pencil, not a weapon, and eased the flat edge into the hairline around that 1 hollow tile. Stop, I said. What? Listen. We waited. 1, 2, 3. But this time the taps sounded faint, farther away, like they were behind the tile and down, inside the wall, like someone was telling me a direction only by sound. I pressed my ear to the cool ceramic. Again, I whispered to whatever was listening. It answered. 3 taps, 3 breaths between each. I slid my hand downward along the tile seam toward the counter. At the corner, where the backsplash met the laminate, a sliver of caulk had separated. Just a sliver, like a paper cut. Enough to catch a fingernail. I hooked my nail there and felt it lift a little. Not the wall, the counter lip. It wasn't fully bonded. There was a seam people never noticed because they never needed to. Must we? My friend asked, so softly it almost wasn't words. I read the note again. When you hear 3, you must. I slid the butter knife into the seam and lifted. The laminate lip came up a 1/4 inch. Under it, in the thin dark where the counter met the wall, something shone back at us. Polished metal, no bigger than a coin. A tiny circle with a slit. A lock. Off to the right of it, pressed into the shadow, I felt the edge of paper. I pinched the corner and eased it free. It was another card, the same size as the one at the store. Thick, clean, not old enough to belong to the apartment. On it, printed in the same plain block letters, open the right thing, not the big thing. Face the light. Do not turn your back. 2 taps wait, 3 taps ask. I felt something like embarrassment, as if I were being coached through a test I should have studied for. My friend switched on the stove light. The cone of warm yellow deepened the shadows everywhere else and made our hands look steady even when they weren't. What's the right thing? She asked. Not a door, I said. Not the wall. Small.
We looked around for small things that could open.
Drawer, cupboard, bread box, the fruit bowl space, the mug cabinet with its squeaky hinge. I opened nothing yet. I listened. Knock, knock, knock. This time the sound came from below the counter. We crouched, shoulder to shoulder, and peered into the cabinet under the sink. Cleaners, sponges, a roll of trash bags. On the back wall of the cabinet, someone, no, not someone we knew, had drawn a small chalk circle, the size of a teacup saucer. Around it, 4 tiny hash marks at the compass points. The circle was faint, like it had been rubbed and redrawn more than once. I touched the chalk. It smudged to my fingertip. "Don't erase it," my friend whispered. I nodded. We stared at it like it might blink. Another 3 taps. But now they sounded out of time, like the last one lagged, not impatient, waiting on us. "Okay," I said quietly to the circle, to the rules, to the night. "We're opening." What? Not the big thing. The right thing. I reached past the cleaners and felt along the back panel. Where the chalk circle was drawn, the thin plywood wobbled. Above the circle, a hidden latch, small, like the slot we saw under the counter lip. My fingertip found a little metal tongue. It clicked when I pushed. A narrow panel swung inward, no bigger than a cookbook, revealing a cramped cavity between the cabinet wall and the actual wall of the building. Inside it, air that wasn't kitchen air, cool, dust-sweet, like old wood, and an object lay there in the shallow space as if it had been set down for us. Not a rattle this time. A twine bundle. 3 sticks, bound in a patient braid, looped with a thin strand of pale hair. The sticks crossed like a small ladder turned on its side. Tied to the center was a slip of register paper, the kind you get when you buy a single cheap thing. The top showed a store name, blacked out with marker, and a total, $1. On the blank side, a hand had written with a dying pen, "Between hours, walk by light. If the lot watches, bring the small ladder." Set it under what looks like a window, but isn't. My friend and I didn't speak. We both looked up instinctively at the clock. 2:14 a.m. Between hours, I said. Whatever that means. 2:17 is coming, she said, almost to herself, like the number had a taste in her mouth. I didn't know why she picked that time, but the second hand crept. 2:15. We left the panel ajar and stood together by the counter, reading the note again, tracing the twine with our eyes, but not our hands. "Do we take it?" she asked. The card said, "Bring the small ladder," I said. But it also said, "Open the right thing." We did that part. "And now what looks like a window, but isn't," she said, testing the phrase as if it would reveal itself just by being spoken. We looked around the apartment for wrong windows. She had 2 real ones, one in the living room, one in the bedroom. Both locked, both ordinary. But in the hall, above the coat rack, was a framed poster with glass. In the kitchen, the microwave door threw a reflection, pitted from years of heat. On the oven, a square of black glass showed our shapes, faint and warped. Which one looked like a window but wasn't? My phone buzzed. Not a call, not a text. A system notification, no SIM, and then it blinked back to normal. Behind that, a single bar of service came and went. "Do we go outside?" my friend asked. "It says walk by light." The clock's second hand slid to the top. 2:16. "Not yet," I said. Between hours might mean we're supposed to wait for it. We stood in the kitchen. We didn't open the big things. We didn't speak to what we didn't name. We let silence be a fence. From the living room, 2 taps. We didn't move. From the hallway, 2 taps. We didn't answer. From the microwave glass, 3 taps. We both turned our heads at the same time. The sound hadn't been inside the oven. It had been on the glass itself, like knuckles traveling through reflection. "Window, but not," my friend whispered. She reached for the twine bundle with both hands, gentle like lifting a sleeping bird. We carried it together into the living room, holding it flat so the little ladder figure wouldn't twist. The porch light outside painted a warm oblong on the carpet. Beyond it, street dark, and the night air quiet like a held breath. We set the twine bundle under the living room window, then hesitated. The note had been exact. Set it under what looks like a window, but isn't. A real window might be wrong. We both looked slowly at the television. Big, black, reflective. Every night it showed other rooms we could enter. Every night it showed windows that weren't windows. We moved as one. We set the twine bundle on the console, centered beneath the TV. 3 taps sounded from the glass, soft, approving, like knuckles telling us we'd found the shape of the rule. The tiny beads in the baby rattle, still sitting in the car, we thought, seemed to shiver in my memory. I looked down at my coat pocket, empty. "Did you take the rattle inside?" my friend asked. I shook my head. I left it in the cup holder. We listened again. Something like a draft moved across the room. Not cold, just enough to make the ficus leaves tremble once like a nod. The television stayed dark, but in its black glass, our reflections sharpened as if someone had cleaned it from the other side. Between our reflected shoulders, a thinner shape hung back. Not the old woman. Tall, shoulders wrong, as if a coat were draped on a hook that didn't belong there. I didn't turn. Neither did my friend. In the TV's reflection, the shape raised a hand. Not to us, to the twine bundle below the screen. The bundle rattled softly against the wood, the tiny register slip lifting with a static sigh. The hand in the reflection tapped the glass 3 times, slow. Then drew a pale finger across where the wall would be, at knee height, as if underlining an invisible seam. "Under what looks like a window," I said. "There's something under there." My friend slid her fingers under the console edge and felt along the back. "It's just drywall," she said. She pressed. Something shifted with a discouraged creak. A little panel, magnet held, dropped open at the baseboard like a mouth. Inside, another small cavity. A shoebox-sized hollow, dustless, waiting. And there, a folded map. Not of streets, of the lot. Not drawn to scale, drawn to feeling. The lamppost circle, heavy with pencil. The store door, marked with a tiny rectangle and the word "Inside Knock." 2 car silhouettes on the far row, one shaded blue. An X on the curb where my car had been. And along the roofline of the store, tiny slashes like stitches. In the margin, handwritten, "The lot has routes. Walk only in light. If you must cross dark, carry 2 taps with you." Below that, a time written twice. 2:17, 2:17. We both looked up at the clock. 2:17 a.m. The room seemed to lean very slightly, as if the building took a small breath and didn't quite let it out. A quiet rose like tide. Street hush, far engine, the intimate sound of pipes in the wall shifting temperature. And under it, almost too soft to hear. Knock, knock. 2 taps from the hallway. We stayed still. Then from the television glass, 3 taps, patient. The map's edge fluttered in a breath we didn't feel. "I think," my friend said, voice careful, "we're not done tonight." "Between hours," I said. She nodded. "And the lot. The roots." We gathered what we had, the map, the small ladder of twigs, the 2 notes. We left the TV panel open, the bundle in place. At the door, I stopped. Across the street, a dark sedan idled with its lights off. Not the same model, not the same spot, but it had the feeling of that other car. Too still, too patient, like a blink that refused to happen. On her stoop, the porch light hummed its soft, golden hum. Below it, The small square of concrete was our island. "We walk by light," my friend said. I nodded. No dark crossings. We stepped out together and stood in the warm square. I felt the map's paper through my coat like a second heart. In the upper right corner, pencil letters we hadn't noticed before caught the light. "If something waits in a car, give it a door to knock. 2 taps you carry." "How do we carry taps?" my friend asked. Something rolled against my palm inside my pocket. I hadn't put my hand there, but I felt the weight now, light, plastic, familiar. I drew it out, the baby rattle. It shouldn't have been with me, but it was. Warm from my coat, beads pale as tiny moons. My friend watched my face. "You didn't bring it up," she said. "No." She lifted her chin toward the street. "Then maybe it followed the rules better than we did." I held the rattle lightly. The beads clicked once, soft as a yes. From the sedan, the faintest outline of a head shifted behind the tinted glass. Not a threat, not a friend, just there, waiting the way the lot waits. We looked at each other, then at the path between lights, porch, corner lamp, parking lot pole. A clean route if we didn't look away. A thin river of brightness we could step inside like a promise. "We'll check the store," I said. "We don't go near the cars. We don't turn our backs if we must cross dark." "We carry our taps," she finished. She set her key in the lock from the outside, not to trap us out, but to make sure the door would know us when we came back. We both glanced once at the television through the window. In its black glass, for a breath of a breath, the tall, wrong-shouldered reflection lifted a hand again. Not waving, pointing, to the map in my pocket. We stepped down into the cone of lamplight. The baby rattle rested in my hand like a small, obedient clock. On the first patch of darkness between lights, I raised it and let the beads kiss the plastic twice. Tap, tap. The night answered with the softest shift, an aisle being made where there wasn't one before, a path our feet understood before our eyes could see it. We followed. Halfway to the corner, behind us and far above, something moved on the store roofline. Not a coat this time. Something like a chair turned to face a wall. We didn't turn around. At the lamp, light pooled bright as water, and the map's pencil marks looked new again. When we looked up, the automatic doors at the store, locked dark, were waiting with their own quiet. From deep behind the glass, 2 gentle taps answered. Not for us, not yet. The sedan's engine changed its breath just a little. The roofline shape came forward, just a fraction, and in my palm, the baby rattle warmed as if someone else were holding it with me, guiding my fingers. "Okay," my friend said, exhaling the word like a steadying prayer. "Rules." We stepped toward the next cone of light, and from the store's inside darkness, measured and patient. Knock, knock, knock. 3 taps. We looked at each other. We didn't run, we didn't speak. We simply answered by setting the small ladder of twigs at our feet, pointing it toward the door that wasn't open yet. Then we lifted the rattle. Tap, tap. The lot made a narrow path where no path had been. We stepped into it, and all the lights along the row blinked once like eyes trying not to be noticed, and held. We moved by light. Porch, corner lamp, pole at the far row. Between them, small rivers of brightness ran across the blacktop, thin but enough. The baby rattle warmed in my palm as if it remembered the way, beads kissing plastic twice whenever the dark asked a question. Tap, tap. At the edge of each cone, the lot held its breath. When we stepped in, the breath eased. When we looked back, it held again. We didn't look back much. The store waited ahead, doors locked, glass turned to night. From inside, 3 taps, measured like a teacher's patience. Knock, knock, knock. We reached the last pole lamp before the entrance. Under its humming shade, we unfolded the map on the hood of a blue compact car. It wasn't a real map. It was a feeling charted to paper. The lamppost circle was thick with pencil. My car's parking space was marked with an X. 2 long rectangles near the far curb had been shaded like cars seen from above. Along the roof line, the little slashes, stitches, almost glowed where the graphite was heavy. In the bottom corner, a tiny ladder shape had been drawn and then erased and drawn again, like a hand that tried to get it right more than once. My friend ran her finger from our pole lamp to the doors. "Between," she said, like she was answering a question that hadn't been asked out loud. We stepped to the edge of the light and paused. On the roof, the wrong-shouldered figure sat where shadow ate the neon, not moving. Just there. It didn't feel like a person. It felt like a rule that had taken shape so you wouldn't forget it. I lifted the rattle. Tap. Tap. A thin seam of visibility stitched itself between our lamp and the doors, not brighter than the rest, just less arguable. We walked that seam. Up close, the glass showed our faces stacked on the night. Beyond it, aisles slept with their labels facing nobody, and the register glowed a soft green like a fish tank in a dark room. We set the twine ladder on the ground, centered beneath the seam where the 2 sliding doors met. I didn't know why. It felt like placing a key where a keyhole wasn't. 3 taps came again, polite. The old woman from aisle 4 wasn't in the glass now. No coat, no folded hands. Only the reflection of a store that believed it was empty. My friend tilted her head. "Do you hear anything under the taps?" I wanted to say no. I listened anyway. Behind the 3 knocks, faint as a scuff on linoleum, came something like a whisper of wheels. A cart moving slow. One squeaky wheel telling on itself, and then deciding to be quiet. Between hours, the store had a sound. "Don't open the big thing," I whispered. "The doors," she said. We looked down. At our feet, the small ladder, made of 3 sticks and patient twine, had turned ever so slightly on its own. Its top rung now pointed left, toward the row of carts. The doors stayed closed. The glass held the night. The small ladder waited. We moved together, shoulders square to the lot, necks unoffered to the dark. Along the cart bay, a red handle glowed like a coal. The last cart wasn't locked to the chain. It sat shy of the others, as if it had drifted. "Window, but not," my friend said. The cart's child seat had a small plastic panel where a store map should be. Instead, there was a blank, reflective square gone gray with scratches. It threw back a soft version of our faces like a pond that didn't want to be clear. I set the twine ladder under it. Tap, tap. From the plastic panel, 3 taps answered, so soft I felt them in my teeth more than I heard them. The child seat's panel clicked. Its gray lid lifted on its own and revealed a shallow pocket. Inside lay a folded receipt, unnaturally white in the dark, like it had never been in a pocket or a wallet. On the back, the same careful block letters. Routes change on the hour. Between, they repeat. If watched from the roof, walk by light and carry a door. If followed from a car, tap twice and do not run. Below the lines, a tiny drawn icon I hadn't seen before, a door tilted on its side, like a picture frame set wrong. "Carry a door?" my friend asked. The roofline figure inched forward, only a fraction, only enough to prove it could. I looked to the map again. At the corner near the lamppost, someone had penciled a small rectangle that wasn't there before. When I lifted the page to see if it was a trick of shadow, the mark stayed. It had been added. Between hours, the map updated itself like weather. I followed the new rectangle's suggestion with my eyes. Concrete, pole, a narrow gray maintenance cabinet I'd never noticed. It was bolted to the base of the lamp. At the top, a little recess held a keyhole with a square stem. Beside it, a small metal plate stamped with 2 shallow circles, one above the other. 2 taps, if you wanted to be literal. My friend and I stood in the lamp's cone and looked at the little plate. "Do we knock on it?" she asked. I held the rattle and let the beads kiss twice. Tap, tap. The maintenance cabinet hummed a very small hum, like something waking in a pocket of the world. Then the panel opened a sliver. Inside, neatly coiled, lay a rectangle of acrylic with a handle. Not glass, not heavy. A carryable square as big as a clipboard, with a faint rubber gasket around the edge. A door you could carry. When I lifted it, the gasket gripped my fingers and then softened as if it had decided to accept the warmth of my hand. On the handle, an engraving no one would have bothered with if it weren't for help. Face the light. I turned the rectangle toward the pole lamp, and the acrylic went from clear to softly milky, like breath on a window that wanted to hold a shape. Something knocked the acrylic from the other side. Not hard, not even hopeful, just there, 3 times. I didn't move. My friend didn't either. We were learning that between hours, the right action felt less like bravery and more like being careful in a kitchen you weren't raised in. We carried the small door back to the store entrance. We kept our shoulders square and our backs uninteresting. The sedan across the lot idled without lights, patient as a long-held thought. At the glass, we held the little door up to the seam where the 2 big doors met. The acrylic's gasket drew toward the glass without our help. It sealed with a soft kiss. On the other side, in the store's dark, a small square of glow appeared, as if we'd made a window where there wasn't one. In that square, I saw what had done the knocking. Not a person, not anything with a name I'd learned, just a suggestion of a hand, pale as a fogged reflection, tapping politely on the world. Between finger and thumb, the pail held a strip of register paper folded twice. It lifted the paper toward our window like a server offering a check, waiting without impatience. I reached out to take it, and of course my fingers met acrylic. I felt silly for a breath, then remembered the rattle. Tap, tap. The pail set the paper into the gasket's edge. It slid through the seal like thread through cloth and rested on our side, clean and dry. We let the acrylic door go. It unlatched from the big doors with the sound of a sigh and hung mild and obedient in my hand. We stepped back to the lamp. We read the paper. Aisle 4 is a throat. Don't walk it straight. If a voice behind you knows your name, that hour is not yours. When 2 taps wait, give them a room. On the edge of the slip, a time again, 2:17. My friend pressed her lips together. Aisle 4, she said. We both thought of the old woman and her rattle balanced like a metronome on her knees. We both thought of the first question she'd asked, in a place where there were too many things disguised as questions. Where's your family, dear? I folded the slip into the map and felt how the paper made a new weight in the world. The roofline shape stayed where the neon died. The sedan shifted the idea of its head. We moved along the seam of light toward the left side of the entrance. Beneath the windows, the store's brick wall held a glossy poster advertisement in a frame. A family smiling at the idea of new storage bins. A window that wasn't. We set the twine ladder under the poster. We lifted the acrylic door to it. The gasket kissed the frame. On the other side, the family's smile blurred, then sharpened as if becoming real in a place without aisles. Beyond their faces, the poster's gloss turned deep, like a pond that decided it could be walked across if only you looked correctly. Something tapped the acrylic from within the poster glass. 3 times, then a pause. Then 2, 3 asks, 2 waits. I held the rattle to the gasket and answered softly. Tap, tap. The acrylic warmed in my hand and released a smell like new plastic and old rain. When I lowered it, a different thing had come through the window we were carrying. A keychain, not a key, just the ring. On it, a flat aluminum tag stamped with a number, 417. My friend exhaled a small laugh that wasn't actually funny. Aisle 4. 17. We didn't have a door to open. We had a number to keep, the suggestion of a route, and the sense that the lot could be crossed if we obeyed by inches. We looked at the roofline again and saw that the wrong-shouldered figure had turned. Not toward us, toward the far corner of the building where the dumpster sat in its little corral. The map had a smudge there, a kind of unreadable mark pressed hard and erased. My friend pointed. Window, but not. We walked by light. At the far corner, the pole lamp cast its brightness across the lid of the dumpster and turned the green paint into a dull lake. The corrugated side held dents like handprints. The heavy lid was shut. We didn't touch the big thing. We knelt and set the twine ladder in the concrete gutter beside it. Under the lid, set into the block wall, a slim panel weighted flush with the surface, the size of a paperback. I never would have seen it in daylight. In the lamp's spill, it looked like a place that wanted company. I lifted the acrylic door to it, the gasket sealed. Something knocked inside, fast at first, then slow, as if remembering how we liked it. 3, 2. We answered. Tap, tap. The panel released with a soft click and opened just enough for air that wasn't night to step out. Inside, a tidy compartment held a plastic clamshell like people use for a prepared sandwich. Not old, not new, just clean. Through its clear lid, something pale lay coiled. Twine, hair-fine thread. A loop of something like fishing line, and a small, torn corner of a baby product label with a pastel bead printed on it. I didn't open the clamshell. We took nothing else from the panel. We closed it with respect, the way you close a book you don't own. Somewhere behind us, on the far row, a car door opened and shut in a way that said nobody wanted to disturb anyone. A polite sound, but too soft to be real, like memory practicing. My friend whispered, "We should go back." Agreed. We folded the acrylic door under my arm and kept the rattle at the ready. We walked by light toward her building, counting our steps with the neon's rhythm. At the edge of the lot, a motion-activated lamp blinked awake and painted the sidewalk in cream. In that moment, the sedan's engine hushed to a lower simmer, as if the night itself cleared its throat so we could cross. On the last patch of dark before her stoop, I lifted the rattle and gave it voice. Tap, tap. The air made room. We stepped into the porch light and held there, breathing. Her key found the lock. The chain lifted. The friendly clink inside the quiet made something in my shoulders decide to drop by a fraction. We set the acrylic door beside the coat rack. We set the twine ladder under the television where we had left it. We set the map on the kitchen table and weighed it with the rattle, as if it could blow away. The apartment listened with us. In the sink, a steady drip we hadn't noticed before became a metronome that wasn't quite in time with the night. I checked the clock. 2:46. Between hours, the room still felt tilted. Not dangerously, just enough to make you check your footing near new edges. We poured water without clinking the glasses. We sat at the table like kids who stayed up too late. "What did we bring in?" my friend asked, gentler than the question sounded. I listed it like a grocery. Map, ladder, door you carry, a number, a clamshell we didn't open, and a rule that aisle 4 is a throat. She nodded. The refrigerator hummed. The drip kept time. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor turned over in a bed, and the wall answered with a soft knock that belonged to plumbing. From our hallway, 2 taps rose precise. We didn't move. Then, from the television's black glass, 3 taps answered, measured. The map's pencil lines looked darker now. I stood, went to the window, looked out over the street. Nothing unusual. No sedan. No wrong-shouldered watcher. Just the gentle grammar of a town asleep, commas of porch lights, blank spaces where sentences might go. When I turned back, the map had changed again. A new mark at the bottom edge, our building, a rectangle sketched with light pencil. Inside it, a smaller rectangle shaded, with a tiny ladder drawn beside it. "What is that?" she asked, coming to my shoulder. "Your TV," I said, and under it the place we opened. The little ladder icon had an arrow now, curved like a softened hook. It pointed to a spot in the hall by the coat rack, near the drywall where the paint was a shade off, a repair from before her time. We went there and pressed our palms to the wall. Cool, still. I listened with my ear. In the plaster, faint as a breath behind a door ajar, came a sound I knew now. Knock, knock, knock. Between the second and third, someone said my name, not out loud, not in the air, right behind the wall. I stepped back and felt the old woman's first rule in the bones of my neck. Eyes forward. Do not show him the back of your neck. My friend's eyes were on me. "You heard it," she said. Not a question. I nodded. "It knows your name," she said. "That hour isn't mine," I answered, repeating the slip as if it were old family advice. We didn't open the big thing. We didn't even look for a small panel. We stood by the light. After a while, the knock didn't come again. We sat at the table and watched the clock walk past 3 a.m. into the other side of whatever this hour was. When the refrigerator switched off for a cooling rest, the apartment felt almost normal. A car in the distance told a casual story with its tires. A lone bird decided it had something to say and then changed its mind. I held the rattle. Its beads were quiet now, a hush you can carry. On the map, a final line had appeared in tidy block letters at the bottom margin, as if the night had saved the last note for when we were still. "When morning comes, don't tidy away the ladder. Aisle 4 will speak again. Bring the number." The aluminum tag on the keyring, 417, was cool on my palm. I set it in the center of the map like a punctuation mark. The apartment's noises thinned to the kind that fall asleep with a room. My friend leaned her head to the chair back and closed her eyes without leaving me. I watched the black square of the television. In its reflection, for one moment, the old woman's coat shaped itself and then became simply the room again. If she was ever there at all, she had obeyed the hour like we did. I stood and turned the lamp lower. We both breathed with the light. And from somewhere beyond the wall we hadn't opened, gentle and patient, as if calendar and clock had both taken a knee. 3 taps arrived, and then a soft, rolling shake like beads inside a toy, as if a rattle were laughing without sound at something we would only understand later. Morning made everything smaller. Halls that felt stretched at 2:17 were simply hallways at 10:06 a.m. The porch light looked sheepish in sunlight, a little brass dot that overdid it last night and was now pretending it didn't remember. We hadn't tidied the ladder. It leaned under the TV like a delicate chore we were saving for later. The map lay open on the table, held flat by the rattle and the aluminum tag, 417. My friend set a mug near the corner, careful not to touch the pencil marks. She watched steam lift, then looked at me. "Still going?" she asked. "We were told to bring the number," I said. Outside, daytime traffic had its friendly grammar. Mail truck, dog collar jingling. A neighbor watering planters. All the ordinary proof that nothing strange had ever happened anywhere. We took the small acrylic door, slid it into a tote like a sheet of baking parchment, and tucked the twine ladder into a long pocket, the way you'd carry a rolled-up magazine you're not finished with yet. The rattle went into my coat, where it felt light and heavier at once. We walked. No counting steps, no seam of light decisions, just sidewalk under sun. It was easier that way. Too easy, maybe. The dollar store's sign looked less like a warning and more like a shrug. Automatic doors parted with a well-behaved sigh, and the familiar, sweet plastic air reached to greet us. The cashier was new, or maybe I'd never noticed him. Dimple, green lanyard, name tag that said Adam. He nodded without looking up fully, the way day shift nods when day is busy being day. Inside, light ran hard along the tops of shelves, every edge clear, every label honest. No glass acting like water, no roofline watcher, unless you counted the convex security mirrors planted at the ends of long aisles where the store could see around its own corners. Aisle signs were thick plastic, white letters on green. Food storage, paper goods, cleaners. And there, the number tab clipped under 1. 4. We stood at the mouth of the aisle. A throat, the note had said, "Don't walk it straight." It ran long and narrow, lined with napkins, straws, foil pans, plastic cutlery. At the far end, the convex mirror gathered the whole aisle into a small circle. 2 miniatures of us standing at the edge of a place that wanted us to commit. "Not straight," my friend whispered. We took the right-hand path that wasn't a path at all, stepping into aisle 3 for 2 bays, then crossing over into aisle 4 at bay 7, back out again at bay 10, into aisle 5, then slipping back to aisle 4 at 15. In and out like we were teaching ourselves to breathe around something lodged in the center. A stock cart squeaked somewhere behind paper towels. Someone coughed in candy. 2 kids argued softly and seasonal about who got the orange plastic shovel. Normal, deeply, stubbornly normal. At bay 17, the peg hooks were full of plastic cutlery packs. Knives stacked like flat schools of fish, black forks, white spoons. On the tag strip's left corner, a small round sticker marked a reset. New planogram effective Monday. The aluminum tag in my pocket felt suddenly cool. Aisle 4, bay 17. We stood a little too still for a store. "Help with anything?" a voice asked gently. I turned. Adam had wandered down without us noticing. He stood at the mouth of the aisle, half in the convex mirror's circle, half in real life. "We're good," my friend said. He nodded, eyes small with the kind of kindness that says he doesn't mind being told no. "You just looked like you were trying to remember if it was the medium or heavy duty," he said, tapping a box of foil nearby. "The heavy tiers less, for lasagna pans, just saying." "Good note," I said. He smiled and left us to it. We looked back at the hooks. Nothing glowed. Nothing announced itself as a hidden panel disguised as a family-sized spoon. We were here with the number, but daylight had opinions about how far it would go. "Window, but not," my friend said after a while, nodding at the convex mirror above us. A round window, a bowl of reflection. We set the twine ladder on the top shelf where no one would step on it by accident. I slid the acrylic door partly out of the tote, feeling a little foolish. We weren't going to stick a portable window against a mirror in the middle of the day, in front of a camera that watched for this exact kind of behavior. We didn't. We just looked at our circle selves, smaller and more serious than I expected us to look in daylight. In the mirror, something else joined our smallness. Not a person, just a curve of shadow at the far end, the kind you get when someone stands in the mouth of an aisle long enough that their stillness adds up. When I looked toward the real aisle's end, it was empty. Back in the mirror, a hand raised and tapped the curve of the glass. Not loud, not enough for anyone else to hear, but we felt it in our teeth. 1, 2, 3. My friend turned the twine ladder, aligning its tiny top rung toward the mirror's edge, the way it had spun by itself last night. We didn't lift the acrylic door. We did something smaller. I reached into my pocket and let the rattle's beads kiss plastic softly, so soft that even we barely registered the sound. Tap, taps. Sunlight from the front windows shifted just enough that a strip of aisle brightened. No magic. Just a coincidence the way coincidences like to practice being something else. On the peg strip at bay 17, one price tag was blank. Not misprinted blank, wiped. An empty rectangle the exact size of a small note. My friend slid her nail under the clear plastic guard and bent it back an inch. A square of paper waited beneath, hidden behind the tag. We eased it out. Not a receipt this time. A square cut from printer paper, neat, with those same block letters. Day rules are thinner. Carry the number, don't carry the door. Ask for the heavy duty, pay $1, keep the change. I looked down the aisle at the foil pans. Adam had been generous with his lasagna advice. We obeyed the smallest possible version of the instruction. I took a heavy-duty roll, and my friend took a medium, because daylight lets you pretend you have choices. At the register, a tiny line had formed. A woman with dish soap, a man with greeting cards, a kid with 3 balloons, and a serious grip on the curling ribbon so the sky wouldn't win. Adam rang each calmly, the beeps steady, the drawer rolling in and out with the store's measured breath. Our turn. We set our rolls down. Heavy tears less, Adam said again, friendly. Good pick. He scanned, bagged. The screen flashed $2. He frowned and tapped a key. It's $1 each, sorry. Tuesday pricing is weird on this thing. He corrected it. $1 together today, he said and smiled. Lucky you. I paid 1 bill. He handed me a paper dollar back even though no math justified it. He didn't seem to notice. Have a good one, he said. And the words were such an ordinary blessing that for a second I believed in bright linoleum forever. Outside, the air had warmed. We stood by the cart corral and read the rest of the note we hadn't turned over yet. On the back, smaller letters. Don't walk aisle 4 straight on your way out either. At 2:17, day or night, the lot chooses a route. If the door inside knocks where a wall should be, bring the heavy duty. Line the throat so it can't swallow. I looked at my friend and then at the foil roll. We had been given a household task with the temperature turned down low enough to accept it. Okay, she said, we'll line a throat. We went home the long way, because day invites detours. A small park. 2 dogs doing a careful hello. A kid making chalk suns on pavement. Circles with lines, the universal diagram for warmth. Back inside, the apartment felt like an animal, asleep in a safe place. We set the foil on the table next to the map, the rattle, the aluminum tag. It was 1:41 p.m. An hour and change until 2:17 again, the number that had started to feel like a chime the day hit no matter where you were, like church. Only the congregation was smaller and the rules were stranger. We didn't nap. We tidied a little around the untidied things, the way you clean a room, but leave the project in the center so your life doesn't forget about it. At 2:09, the refrigerator kicked off and the apartment did its small hush. We stood in the hall where the paint shade shifted, the not quite patch the map had pointed to last night. We brought the acrylic door anyway, even though the note said don't carry it by day, because sometimes carrying a thing is a way to be brave without using it. We brought the foil roll and the number tag. The twine ladder stayed under the TV, a good luck shape resting. I took a breath. Air in, air out. 2 taps came from behind the wall. We did not answer. Silence can be a fence and a courtesy at the same time. The clock on the stove lifted its blue digits. 2:16. I slid a fingernail along the wall's baseboard and found nothing. No seam. No hidden tongue. We looked at each other and agreed without words to keep our shoulders square, our necks uninteresting. 2:17. A soft knock from inside the wall, slightly higher than before, like someone remembered they should be taller in daylight. 3 taps now, measured, not unkind. We had been told, when you hear 3, you must. I set the aluminum tag, 417, against the wall where the sound had come from. It stuck. Not magnet, not tape. Just that it had chosen to stay. The paint darkened beneath it in the shape of a small square, as if the wall had decided to remember something we were barely asking it for. Line the throat, my friend said softly. We peeled a length of foil, the first sheet noisy in the quiet, then gentler. We pressed the heavy-duty brightness to the wall, covering the remembered square and a little more, smoothing it with our palms until the wrinkles became lines that mirrored our hands. The wall took the foil the way skin takes warmth. Inside it, the 3 taps came again, and this time, the sound moved sideways behind the shine we had made, like knuckles tracing what they used to claim. We stood together and listened to our own breathing. In the silver, our blurry faces looked like we were already in another room, trying to wave to ourselves. I lifted the rattle and let the beads kiss plastic twice, a daytime courtesy. Tap, tap. The foil brightened minutely, as if a small light had decided to be generous for a second, and then think better of it. "Bring the heavy duty," the note had said. "Line the throat so it can't swallow." We had done this small household chore, and the wall, disappointed, did not swallow. It knocked once in a kind of concession, then was still. Only then did we lift the acrylic door, hold it up to the foil. Not to open anything, just to see what the portability of windows felt like at 2:17 in the afternoon. The gasket kissed the foil anyway, finding a seal in shine. Through the square, nothing changed, except that we could hear the apartment more carefully. Clock, pipe, a faint radio from upstairs, music you only recognize as music when someone else turns it down. We let the acrylic door go. It released with a soft sound, like a held breath being exhaled with manners. "Day rules are thinner," I said, folding the note back into the map. We cleaned nothing. We left the foil where it was, a small, bright bandage on a house we didn't own. By late afternoon, the room had accepted it. By evening, the foil had become the kind of thing you can't remember not having, like a hook you've always meant to use and will someday. We ate simply. We didn't talk about the sedan or the roofline or the old woman. We watched a cooking show with the volume low, a quiet host making bread you have to wait for. At 9:02 p.m., when the horizon decided to stop pretending, the apartment dimmed in a way I recognized. The map on the table darkened at the edges, and then grew darker in the middle, like someone had set a thumb there thoughtfully. The aluminum tag slid an inch on its own, not far, just enough to be noticed. We stood. The tag had pivoted to point at the twine ladder under the TV. Together, they made an arrow toward the window, and from the window, 2 soft taps, polite as a neighbor with a borrowed cup measuring sugar back out to you in the evening. We went to the glass. Outside, the streetlight had chosen a moth to love, and the moth chose it back. The taps came again, this time from the black of the television's reflection. 3. The small ladder on the console shifted a fraction, turning its little rungs toward the pane. We didn't lift the acrylic door. We didn't need to. We just stood by the window and let our shoulders be squares, and our necks be uninteresting, and our hands be ready without being fists. From the street, an engine turned the corner without hurry. From the roofline, nothing, because you can't watch from every angle at once, even if you are a rule pretending to be a shape. Between us, between the room and its reflection, the smallest suggestion of a hand raised, pale, careful, patient, and tapped once more. Then slid something thin under where the glass met the sill without opening anything at all. We didn't reach for it right away. We looked and then looked away the way you look at a gift too carefully wrapped to be for you. When I finally took it, the paper was the size of a bookmark and the weight of something you could lose by thinking of something else. On one side, block letters we knew. "Tomorrow bring a coin." If a voice uses your name from behind the glass, answer with a place instead. At the lot, if the car waits with lights off, tap twice and walk like you forgot something inside. On the other side, a date and time, tomorrow, 2:17. Below it, a single word that wasn't a word we'd used for any of this yet, but made a tidy sense that made the room feel 1 degree smaller in a way that wasn't unkind. Return. We stood with that word between us and the room and night, and the foil on the wall caught a faint echo of light and held it long enough that our faces looked almost rested. From the hallway came two polite taps, the kind that ask nothing and remind you of everything. We didn't answer. We let silence be a fence that invited a path. The acrylic door leaned where we'd left it, obedient and possible. The map kept its pencil quiet. We breathed with the lamps turned low, and at exactly the minute the stove clock slid from 9:16 to 9:17, from somewhere you could point at and nowhere at all. A baby rattle rolled softly in a place we couldn't see, beads tumbling gentle as rain on a windshield you haven't turned the wipers on for yet. The paper from the window gave us 3 lines and a word to hold in the mouth like a lozenge. Bring a coin. If a voice uses your name from behind the glass, answer with a place instead. If the car waits with lights off, tap twice and walk like you forgot something inside. Return. We kept the day ordinary as long as we could. Errands, laundry, dishes that sounded like glass speaking politely to water. The foil bandage on the hall wall caught sun and gave it back to the room. The twine ladder stayed where we'd left it under the TV. The acrylic door leaned by the coat rack like a sheet of captured air, sleeping. At 1:52 p.m., I put a coin in my pocket. Quarter. State design worn smooth by other pockets. I rubbed its ridged edge with my thumb until the metal felt warmer than it should. Place, my friend reminded me, rinsing a mug. If a voice uses your name, answer with a place. What place? I asked. She shrugged, the smallest lift of shoulder. Not a secret, just an answer. We left at 2:05 so we wouldn't have to hurry. No need to run when you know a minute is waiting for you. The lot in afternoon looked like it had forgiven us for believing in last night. 2 families in minivans, an older couple negotiating the cart return like choreography, a teenager skating slow along the far curb, wheels making the sound of pencil on paper. The dark sedan was there again, a few rows back, lights off, windows a little too dark for the time of day. We walked by light, not because we had to at this hour, but because habit is its own kind of fence. At the first pole we paused. Tap, tap. I let the rattle kiss itself softly in my pocket, felt the answer more than heard it. A clean seam from lamp to door, the store fresher for our courtesy. As we passed the sedan, I didn't look, but I knew the feeling of someone waiting with patience too practiced to be casual. Walk like you forgot something inside, my friend murmured. We did. We stepped past the doors, then hesitated together, as if one of us had left a list on a counter and the other one remembered first. The automatic doors parted. The lobby air held that sweet, clean store breath. To our right, a faded sticker vending machine waited, plastic bubbles full of temporary animal tattoos and shiny, smiley faces. Next to it, a wire rack of charity candy, a clear box with a padlock and a slot cut in the top, the kind of box that trusts coins and people at the same time. Bring a coin, I said. I dropped the quarter into the sticker machine and turned the metal handle. It clicked, heavy, honest. A capsule rolled into the tray, yellow top, clear base. Inside, not a sticker. A folded paper circle and a single pastel bead, the exact size and color of the ones in the rattle. We didn't open it right away. Day rules are thinner. We let the thinness be. The cashier today was not Adam. He must have been on a different shift. A woman with a purple scrunchie stood at the register, scanning slowly, calm as a metronome. We drifted toward aisle 4, but did not walk it straight. Slip into 3 for 2 bays, cross to 4 at 7, back out at 10, in at 15. Our route like a breath around a throat. At bays 17, the peg strip we'd pried yesterday had been wiped clean. No note, only ordinary price tags, ordinary forks and spoons packed and stacked with cheerful regularity. The convex mirror above held our small selves, and at the far mouth of the aisle, a darker blur that could have been anyone standing still. "Open the capsule," my friend whispered. In the shadow between shelves, I cracked the plastic. The bead rolled into my palm, pale as a seed. The folded circle opened into another fragment of rule, same square lettering, smaller now. "Face the light. If glass speaks your name, say where you are. The door you carry fits any frame that wants a window." We stood under the mirror and said nothing. A voice came from behind glass. Not the intercom, not the register speaker. From the convex bowl itself, like sound sliding along chrome. It said my name. Not loud, not friendly or unkind, just correct. My mouth was already answering before I got scared. "Aisle 4, I said. And then, because naming the aisle felt too small, "Dollar store. By the mirror." The voice didn't repeat me. The mirror just held us, and the blur at the far mouth sighed the way people sigh when the answer is acceptable. We didn't lift the acrylic door in daylight. We didn't need to. The mirror was a window that wasn't, and we had given glass what it asked for, place instead of person. "Coin," my friend said, nodding to the charity box at the lobby as we walked back. I slid the bead into the slot. It shouldn't have fit. It did. The bead clicked on plastic and made a sound like a modest bell in a quiet church. The padlock didn't move, but the clear box released a thin paper strip, like a cash register offering change and instructions. "Tonight, carry the door. At 2:17, set the small ladder under a window that was added. If the lot watches, give 2 taps a room." We left $1 anyway. It seemed only fair to pay for advice. Outside, the sedan sat with its engine off, and its idea of a person inside it unchanged. We didn't look. We walked like we'd forgotten something at home, which in a way we had. A map that kept changing, and a foil square that now felt less like protection and more like participation. Evening arrived by degrees that felt like kindness. The apartment welcomed the change, with that small hush of lights finding their roles. We placed the bead beside the rattle on the map. It made a tiny sound when it touched paper, like a soft period at the end of a line. "Added window," my friend said. "What's been added?" We checked the room for wrong rectangles. Nothing new. Same frames, same TV, same lamp glow. We checked the hall. Foil square steady, acrylic door leaning obediently, the not-quite paint repair unchanged. In the kitchen, above the sink, the glass of the microwave door showed our shapes again. We both remembered the first night's taps on that glass, not in it, but on it, as if reflection had knuckles. I stood there and waited. The microwave stayed a microwave. No knocks. No hand asking to be named. "Window that was added," my friend said again, thoughtful now. She turned slowly, looking not at walls but at light. We both saw it at the same time. Above the entry, where the hallway turns to the living room, a small square of brighter paint. We'd lived with it so long it had disappeared into ordinary. Once a blank spot for a Wi-Fi extender, the landlord had mounted and removed before her time. 4 tiny screw holes spackled and sanded, a patch that matched almost perfectly. Almost. A window that wasn't, added once, subtracted later. But paint remembers even when we don't. We lifted the twine ladder and set it on the floor directly beneath that square. We brought the acrylic door and faced the room's softer lamp with its frame. "Face the light," I said without meaning to. The gasket warmed in my hands. From the square above the entry, 2 taps, not from the drywall itself, from the idea of what had been there. We didn't open anything. We gave 2 taps a room. I raised the rattle and answered, tap, tap. The acrylic door drew itself upward with a gentle pull, not leaving my hands, just insisting. I held it to the paint patch and the gasket kissed the place perfectly, like it had been cut for this exact almost square years ago by someone who knew we'd be here now. Through the acrylic, the sound that came was unmistakable. The soft, polite knock of someone waiting behind glass that wasn't real anymore. 3 taps. We didn't flinch. We let the silence be our fence and our invitation. A slip of paper slid out from nowhere, and now, resting against the inside of the acrylic, then passed through the seal as easily as thread. We took it. No instructions this time. A map fragment. A rectangle only, lantern bright pencil, with a small inked X at the center and 4 little tick marks at the corners like a compass had been taught to square itself. In one margin, a time, 2:17. In the other, a word that wasn't on any store aisle label and still felt like it belonged here. Office. We'd never seen the office. We'd never needed to. Customers don't go there. But the map wanted it, and the word felt like a floor tile you notice only when your foot finds the uneven edge. We set the new fragment beside the old lot map, and they overlapped with a neat logic I couldn't have planned. Corner marks lining up, the X settling into negative space like a key finally remembering where the lock lives. "Tonight," my friend said. We boiled water for tea we didn't finish. We turned off the TV. We left the twine ladder under the patch square in the acrylic door near the coats, not quite put away, ready. At 2:08 a.m., the refrigerator rested again. At 2:12, a car somewhere down the block took a turn with soft tires. At 2:15, the foil on the hall wall picked up nothing and kept it like light. We stepped onto the porch at 2:16 with our pockets small and obedient. Rattle, bead, quarter we didn't need anymore. The aluminum 417 tag. The lot was itself and also listening. Tap, tap. We stitched light to light and left the dark to be itself. The sedan sat in the far row, lights off, a silhouette's patience. We didn't look. We walked like we'd forgotten something inside, which in this hour was always true. At the doors, the glass was night. We set the twine ladder beneath the seam. We lifted the acrylic door and let it kiss the center. A small square of the store became our window again. Not bright, not cinematic, just a rectangle of inside where outside was, a courtesy the world offered back when we did our part. On the other side, a taped sign waited on the office door I'd never really noticed before. White paper, black letters, closed after 10, ring, wait. Next to it, a small metal button I'd mistaken for decoration all my life. 2 taps want a room, my friend whispered. I raised the rattle and gave the door a sound it could answer. Tap, tap. From behind the little office door, a softer tap replied. Then a second, then a third. Ask, ask, ask. We didn't reach through the acrylic, couldn't, but our window was enough to make the door remember how to be a door. The office opened 3 inches into a darkness that felt like coat fabric, soft, smelling faintly of paper and warm dust. A hand moved in that gap, not the old woman's, not a man's, a person's hand, pale because the room was dark, careful because rules were careful too. It held a coin, not a quarter, a dull brass token the size of $1, stamped with a number that made my mouth taste like metal when I read it. 417. The hand set the token on the sill and withdrew. The little office door, in our small window to the inside, closed again without complaint. We lowered the acrylic, the gasket let go with a satisfied sigh, and the token fell to our side, not loudly, like it had been here all along, just waiting for the right window to be carried to it. We didn't pocket it. We carried it together, palms making a small altar. Car, my friend said quietly, not meaning a vehicle, not exactly. She meant a watcher, a shape that held patience too well. Across the lot, the sedan remained lights off and certain of its stillness. We didn't give it our backs. We walked by light the way people step across stones in a shallow stream. At the corner pole, we paused. The token lay warm between our hands. The map in my coat felt heavier with all its tidy rectangles and pencil stitches. At the last lamp before the street, 2 taps rose from the metal service door on the side of the building, the one we'd passed 100 times without ever noticing. It had a small, glassless window near the top, a dark square set into metal, a window that wasn't. We set the twine ladder beneath it, because that's what we do now when a square asks for company. We held up the acrylic door. Through our small window, the service hall yawned white and empty. Far down it, a red exit sign made a private horizon and hummed to itself. Someone said my name, not loud, not harsh, from behind the metal where the window should have been. My mouth answered as the rule required. "Side hall service door," I said, then clearer. "Dollar store." By the exit sign. The metal didn't echo. The hall didn't narrow. The voice didn't continue. From behind our small window, a second hand appeared. Older, bones gentle, veins like rivers on a map. It touched the other side of the acrylic where my palm rested, and for a breath, matched me. Not cold, not warm, just present. A ring on the hand glinted once, not an engagement ring. Something simpler. A smooth band engraved on the inside with tiny letters I could not read in this light. The hand lifted, held a key, not a skeleton key, not a house key, flat white plastic, the kind offices use. On it, black marker wrote a neat permanent word, OFFICE. The hand slid the card against the acrylic. The gasket accepted it. The key came through like a quiet thought. We took it. The voice didn't say my name again. The hand retreated. The red exit hummed, satisfied to be read. We lowered the acrylic door and faced the light. Our route back to the porch felt so simple I almost laughed. We had done nothing dramatic. We had obeyed polite instructions and household chores. And still, the night made room for us like we had offered it a chair and it had taken it with thanks. On the stoop, we looked at what we'd gathered. A bead, a token stamped 417, an office key that wasn't to our office, a map that kept learning how to be a better map. "Return," my friend said softly, reading last night's word again. "Tomorrow," I said. We set the token on the map, and it made the exact sound of a coin placed on glass, soft, certain, a small promise. The apartment welcomed us like a room we had earned the right to be in. We didn't sleep right away. We watched the foil square with our peripheral vision. We let the twine ladder rest under the patched paint, its little rungs aligned like a patient spine. At 3:03, the refrigerator hummed again. At 3:05, a truck far away made a sentence and period out of 2 turns. At 3:11, the stove's blue clock gave up deciding to be useful and became a slow ocean again. That's when the voice came a last time that night. Not from glass, not from behind the wall, from the television's black dash. Gentle, careful, using my name like it belonged to a child once, and the child had fallen asleep on a couch. I answered without turning my neck. "Here," I said. "Living room." By the window. The voice breathed like a room that had decided to be kind. Then 3 small taps touched the glass and stopped. We didn't move. Our hands found each other on the table where the map lay, and the token waited, warm now. And just before the hour was over, the TV's reflection added something it had been trying to add all along. A faint square glow in the corner of the office we had seen through our carried window, as if someone had finally turned on a lamp we hadn't known how to find. The glow was barely there, but it was there, waiting. Helplessness doesn't arrive with sirens. It arrives politely, like a rule you didn't study for. We had the token stamped 417, the office key card, the twine ladder, the map that updated in pencil. and the window we could carry when the world allowed it. It felt like enough until night reminded us what enough means here. The word on last night's slip was still on the table: return. We did small things through the day to pretend time was ordinary. We left the foil on the hall wall. We didn't touch the ladder under the patched square above the entry. We let the acrylic door lean by the coats like a pane of patient air. At 1:56 a.m., we were already laced into our routine. Pockets checked, rattle in mine, coin and bead set on the map like two tiny moons. We didn't talk about fear. We arranged it into lists. Routes first, my friend said. Office second. Don't run, I said, mostly to myself. The lot felt awake when we reached it, but not loud. A hush that knows its name. Tap, tap. I stitched lamp to lamp with the rattle's soft courtesy, and the air agreed. Across the far row, the sedan waited without lights, like a comma that wouldn't become a period. At the glass doors, we set the twine ladder at center seam. I lifted the acrylic door. Nothing. The gasket, which always leaned forward like a dog happy to see us, stayed indifferent, cool to my hands as if it didn't recognize its old job. I pressed the rim lightly to the glass. It didn't kiss. It didn't even try. Between hours, I said, surprised to hear how small my voice had become. The map in my coat felt heavier all at once. I unfolded it under the lamp. New marks had appeared, small X's in the margins, and a neat line of letters added at the bottom in the familiar block hand. Tonight the glass is not yours. The lot chooses doors. Carry taps. Carry light. The office will open from its own side. We stood with that for a moment and let it rearrange our plan. Okay, my friend said, steady. We're not shut out. We're just not in charge. We walked the building's side toward the service door, with the dark square near the top. Last night it had been generous. Tonight it was a rectangle of good manners with nothing to offer. I raised the rattle. Tap, tap. From somewhere farther down the wall, an answer. Not at the service door. From a metal panel we'd never noticed, shin high, painted the color of the building so it could pass as sidewalk. We set the ladder beneath it. Old habit now. I knelt and brushed dust from the seam. No latch, no lock, just a press-fit square that required a request. Tap, tap. The panel breathed out a little warm air and eased open a finger width, enough for a folded sheet to slide out and land against my knuckles. I took it back under the lamp. Block letters, small, precise. If the lot turns off its lights, face each other and don't move. If the roofline speaks, answer with the hour. Office opens by token. Do not carry the window through. By token, my friend said, looking down at 417 in her palm. Not by card? We carried both. At the corner, the pole lamp hummed and flickered, and then steadied like it had caught itself from tripping. We turned down the building's back row where employees park. No cars. Just a dumpster we now recognized without needing to prove we recognized it. As we passed the last lamp before the back door, every light in the lot went dark at once. Not a failure, a decision. The darkness was complete enough to make breath louder. Face me, my friend said at once. We turned toward each other and stood still. No flinching, no searching the black. Helplessness sat with us like a third person at a table, elbows on the wood, chin in hands, willing to wait as long as it takes. In the dark, my fingers found the rattle and held it without using it. If the rules wanted our stillness, we would be generous. Somewhere on the roofline, a shape slid forward, not a person, just a rule remembering it could have weight. It spoke, not in words, in the measured thud of something set down 3 times far above. Knock, knock, knock. What hour? My friend breathed. 2:17, I said, because my mouth knew before the stove clock did. 2:17. The roofline stilled. One by one, every lamp along the back row rose to a dimmer version of itself, like people lifting their heads from their hands to say, "Yes, I'm still listening." The back door of the store, a plain metal slab with a badge reader and a camera bubble above it, pinged softly. The red dot on the reader turned green without our card. "By token," my friend said again, and I pressed 417 to the plate, because sometimes knowing you're not in charge means doing the obvious anyway. The door unlatched with a polite click and opened 4 inches, no more, as if a hand on the inside were setting boundaries for us both. We didn't push. We waited for the lot to decide how generous it intended to be. The door eased wider, just enough for us to slip through without turning our shoulders. We kept our backs uninteresting, our eyes forward, our names inside our teeth. The service hall smelled like floor cleaner and paper, an inside version of rain. Fluorescent tubes hummed with a sound I had grown up with, a sound that can be comfort until it isn't. Far down the corridor, the office door we'd seen through our carried window waited with its taped sign. "Closed after 10. Ring. Wait." The bell button beside it looked like an eye drawn by a child. "2 taps won a room," my friend said, and pressed the flat of her knuckle to the metal. Tap, tap. From inside, 1 answering knock and then 2 more spaced like a lesson. Then the latch turned. The door opened a careful inch. We didn't see anyone. We only saw a small room full of ordinary office, filing cabinet, bulletin board, a desk with a cheap chair turned to face the wall in that uncanny way chairs do when they're not busy being chairs. The chair felt wrong because we were learning to notice wrong chairs, but it was just a chair. We slipped inside, and the door tiredly latched itself behind us without locking. We didn't try the key card. We didn't need to test every rule on every door. On the desk, a CRT monitor hummed, not sleek, not recent. A little belly of glass that remembered another decade. The screen showed a grid of cameras, black and white, aisles end caps, the lobby with its sticker machine, the front doors where our twine ladder still rested against glass outside, polite as a bookmark. One camera showed a view I didn't expect. The corner of our living room, dark, our window a black square, our own small ladder under the patched square above the entry like a sketch that shook a little. I watched myself not being there. "Do we turn it off?" my friend asked, eyes steady on the screen. "We don't own it," I said. The monitor made a small chime the way old things remember how to be new for a second. A text box popped up on the lower left camera, the lobby, like a caption. "Return." Then the word changed. RETURN. Helplessness puts its hands on the sides of your face and turns you gently until you look where it wants. "Return," my friend whispered. "Turn again." On the desk lay an old receipt printer with a roll of paper still threaded. Its light was off. The feed button, yellowed to the color of tea, waited. I pressed it. The printer thought, then whirred, then spit a blank length. Then, slowly, letters impressioned themselves into the strip, darkening as if ink were arriving from a long way off. "Do not carry the window through. Carry the hour. Office to aisle 4. Turn at every 17th. I didn't know you could carry an hour, but we had been doing it all along without admitting it. We stepped back into the service hall. The office door side closed behind us and latched like a cat choosing a room. The corridor to the sales floor was longer than it should have been. Helplessness lengthens things. We did what the strip had told us. At every junction marked with a faded 17 on the cinder block, room numbers, storage bays, we turned. Left, right, counting under our breath like a lullaby. When we reached the swinging double doors to the floor, I didn't expect them to move. They parted a handspan, then more, and the story of the store flowed out around our legs. That colder air that's been through vents, the cardstock smell of end caps and printed specials, The hush of big space at small hours. Aisle signs floated. We didn't walk 4 straight. We never will again. At Bay 17, the convex mirror held us like thumbnails pasted into a circle. But there was something else in the glass now. Not a person. A bright band fixed in the center like a ribbon of foil, pulled tight across a mouth in a portrait. "Line the throat so it can't swallow," my friend said, memory knocking. We had done that at home. "Carry the hour," I said, not sure how to. From somewhere in the store, soft, polite, the 2 taps came we had learned to love because they meant we didn't have to decide everything alone. We answered. Tap, tap. The bright band across the convex mirror shivered the way a string does when air rubs it, and a little square opened in the reflection, like a window purely made of permission. We didn't lift the acrylic door. It had told us it couldn't help tonight. The square was already ours. Behind the reflection square was not the aisle. A small room, tile instead of carpet, a sink, a paper towel dispenser, break room maybe. On its table lay a metal box the size of a book with no markings, just a shallow latch. We stood in the aisle looking at a break room we weren't in, through a window that wasn't a window, in a mirror that was never glass, while the store stayed perfectly calm around us like the ocean when a fish makes a decision in the dark. "Return," my friend said. We both turned ourselves, half a step, as if taking a slow photograph. The mirror square followed our angle with a small obedience that made my eyes sting for no good reason. It wanted us to see, so it moved to match us. "Open it," I whispered to the square we couldn't touch. The latch inside the break room box unlatched itself with the courtesy of a good hinge. The lid lifted. Inside, neatly nested, lay a small plastic tag with a hole for a key ring. White, office, black marker. But on the back, new ink, register. Not a key at all. A label we were supposed to have for something we already carried. The tag turned by itself to show us its other side again. Register. The mirror square closed. The bright band of foil in the glass calmed. We were only our 2 small selves in a round bowl again. "Carry the hour," I said once more, because saying things sometimes makes them real. We walked to the front where the registers slept. One had its screen on, a green glow like an aquarium. The drawer was closed, the keypad drowsy. I set the 417 token where a coaster would go if a register needed tea. The screen printed 217 without my fingers on any keys. Not the time on the stove at home. The hour we had been apprenticing ourselves to. Under it, letters bloomed, faint at first, then certain. A SK. "Ask what?" my friend said. I didn't think. I asked the only question that felt small enough to be safe. "Who waits in the car?" The register made a sound like a coin in a charity box. A receipt began to print. We watched the white edge crawl out of the mouth like a tongue. On it, block letters we knew. Not a who, a when. A time that didn't arrive for someone who kept their engine warm too long. We stood with that. Helplessness sat back down at our table and folded its hands neatly, as if to say, "See, you can't solve a when with a who." The receipt kept printing. "Give it a door when it asks. If it knocks with lights off, tap twice and walk like you forgot something. If it knocks with lights on, don't turn your neck. Name your place." The register finished with a small, satisfied buzz and a thank you that felt more like, "We see you." We left nothing out of place. We walked the service hall back the way we'd come, turning at every 17, the way you talk softly around a sleeping child. At the back door, we paused. I pressed the token to the plate. Green. The door unlatched. We stepped into the lot together. All the lamps went out again, not mean, just thorough. "Face me," my friend said. We did. We didn't move. From the far row, an engine turned over, the sound arriving without hurry. Headlights clicked on, Low beams only, not rude, aiming just past us to make shadows long. Our names would have been mistakes here. We didn't offer them. The car let its lights blink once, like eyes trying not to give anything away. We raised the rattle. Tap, tap. The lights stayed on. The engine kept idling kindly. The car didn't advance. A door didn't open. Instead, from the roofline, 3 soft knocks, patient as the old woman's folded hands. "What hour?" my friend asked. "Here," I said, because for the first time I understood. Not a number, a place. Here, 2 people in a lot that is choosing us as carefully as we are choosing it, lamp to lamp, door to door, carrying small windows we don't deserve, and being gentle anyway. The roofline approved with a single, almost amused tap. The lamps rose to their dim selves again. We walked by light, not talking, the acrylic door quiet under my arm like a well-behaved thought. On the porch, we didn't go in at once. We listened to a night that had decided not to be difficult and thanked it by not being difficult back. Inside, the apartment felt like a room you tiptoe in even if no one sleeps. We set the token back on the map. We set the rattle beside the bead. We laid the office card on the table and, without discussing it, slid the register tag onto the same ring as 417. The foil on the wall reflected one small square of lamp and made it look like a door. We kept the door we could carry where it was, propped near the coats, edged in the ordinary. We sat down across from each other and did not move for a long time because the rules had asked us to practice that. From the kitchen came 2 polite taps, faint, like someone trying not to wake a baby. We didn't answer. The hour had ended. Silence could be offense again. Just as my eyes began to swim with that end-of-night sting, a single new sound plucked itself from the far edge of the room. Not glass, not wood, a soft plastic clink, like a lid closing in the break room of a place you don't work at. We both looked at the television's dark. In the corner of its reflection, the faintest square of glow we'd seen before brightened a fraction more, as if a lamp inside a tiny office had been turned one more click toward day. Then, from the hall where we'd patched the house's throat with foil, 3 taps arrived, careful and exact, and a thin, clean line appeared along the bottom edge of the foil, a seam I knew hadn't been there an hour ago. It wasn't opening. Not yet. It was becoming a place where a window might decide to remember itself. Night has a sound the clock doesn't keep. It was a hush you could walk on. The foil on our hallway wall had changed while we watched it, just a hairline along the bottom, a neat little seam that hadn't existed before. Not open, not threatening, simply available. We didn't touch it then. We slept in turns on the couch, lamps low, the twine ladder still under the patch square above the entry, the acrylic door leaning by the coats like a pane of manners resting. I woke at 1:58 to a quiet that had gathered its edges. My friend was already up, listening to the apartment the way people listen to oceans. She nodded toward the foil, and I saw it. A faint ripple along the seam, like breath just under skin. "Rules?" she said. "Carry taps," I answered. "Face the light." We didn't turn on anything extra. We didn't speak our names. We set the map on the table, weighed it with the 417 token, and placed the office card beside the register tag on the same ring. Paperwork for a night that insisted on being orderly. At 2:11, the refrigerator hummed to a stop. At 2:13, a car outside rolled past without stopping, tires whispering to wet pavement that wasn't wet. At 2:15, the stove's blue digits looked brighter than they should. We stood by the foil. From behind it, 2 taps, polite, patient. We didn't answer yet. Silence can be a fence, and sometimes a door takes its cue from your breath. The seam brightened one shade, catching lamp glow like a line of mercury made honest. 3 taps followed, spaced, steady. the kind a teacher uses when the room is already listening. "When you hear 3, you must," my friend whispered. I lifted the baby rattle and let the beads kiss twice. Tap, tap. The foil warmed through, not hot, warm like a plate held by someone kind. The seam parted a finger width from left to right, then paused, like it was waiting for our posture. We kept our shoulders square, our necks uninteresting. A narrow sound slipped through, no wind, no voice. A tone, low human range, the soft detune of an old radio just to the easy side of a station. It held, then pulsed once, twice, 3 times. "Sound-led," my friend said, the words barely breath. The acrylic door woke in my hands. I hadn't picked it up. I had only looked. But the gasket had sensed a use and wanted to help. I held the acrylic near the foil. It didn't seal. It hovered, warm, as if the window knew the foil was already remembering how to be its own door. The seam widened to 2 fingers. Cold air touched my knuckles, and then warm, then cold again. A tide of temperature changes like someone practicing. From inside the seam, a knock, then its echo from nowhere in the apartment, then a third from far, like the lot remembered us at the same moment the wall did. 3 in relay. Soft, so soft. "Listen," I said. We did. The tone under the knocks changed key, a half step, then another, as if leading us by hand along invisible stairs. Every time the pitch rose, the seam widened a fraction. Every time it fell, it held. "Up," my friend said, watching the pitch like a bird watches thermals. I raised the rattle and matched its little bead roll to the tone's lift. Tap, tap. The seam eased wider. 3 fingers now. Inside, darkness, but not black. Just the kind of dark that belongs to closets and understairs and theaters before the show chooses a first line. A tiny square of paper slid through the gap and rested against my wrist, warm from hands that didn't show themselves. Block letters. No title, just 3 lines, carry hour 2:17. If 2 taps sound behind you, swap places without turning your neck. If 3 taps sound from inside and outside together, speak the store's rule. "What's the store's rule?" my friend asked. I didn't know yet, but the paper didn't ask us to know now. It asked us to practice. The tone rose another step. The seam reached 4 fingers. We set the twine ladder on the floor beneath, as if every opening deserved a little runged assistance. "Between hours," my friend said, checking the stove's glow. 2:16. From the window, 2 taps came, glass, polite. From the coil of the stove, 2 metal clicks answered. Not taps exactly, but cousins. We swapped places like the paper told us to. No necks turned. Just a sideways trade, my body stepping into her square, her body into mine, like dancing inside matching footprints. The apartment approved with a small, satisfied pop from a heat register that wasn't on. The tone climbed once more. 2:17. 3 taps sounded at the same time, from the seam, from the window, from somewhere just above the door we could carry, as if a finger had wrapped a rim of quiet air. My mouth, obedient before I understood, spoke the store's rule. "Don't open the big thing," I said. It surprised me how sure it felt. The seam widened to the width of a hand. Inside, the sound became directional, not loud, just persuasive. A narrow path on the other side sang a line that ears could walk. We didn't put the acrylic through. We knew not to carry windows into places that hadn't asked. We did carry the hour. I pressed the 417 token to the foil's edge. The seam brightened a shade, then held. "Small step," my friend said. We went one at a time, sideways at first, shoulders square to the light, then forward, palms against foil that felt like warm cloth with a good memory. The space inside was thinner than a hallway and thicker than a closet. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a seam, 2 rooms almost touching, the air between doing its best to be both. The tone led. When it rose, we moved. When it held, we breathed. 2 taps behind us. We swapped places without turning our necks. It felt silly and then exactly correct, like a superstition taught in a kitchen that has been right for generations. Another step, another hold. The seam bent left, not a hard turn, just a suggestion. We followed, on my right cheek cool, on my left warm. Ahead, a faint scent of floor cleaner and chalk dust, the office smell we had learned without entering again. We emerged into our living room again, but not quite ours. Same couch, same lamp. The TV's glass, black, with our reflections laid on it like a negative. But on the console beneath, something had been added. A small square frame, wood, empty where a photo should be, glassless. Just a hole for room to look at room. A window that had been made on purpose to be nothing but a frame. We set the twine ladder beneath it. We didn't lift the acrylic. The frame asked for nothing. From the frame's emptiness, 2 taps. We didn't answer. We waited. 3 taps from the hall seam, very soft, like a friend getting your attention with a knuckle and a smile. "Store rule," my friend murmured. "Don't open the big thing," I said again. And the empty frame breathed the tiniest breath, as if it had been holding one for years. Out the real window, the street light blinked once. Not off, not on. A wink. From the far row of the lot, the sedan's engine coughed into idle, then steadied. Lights stayed off. We were nowhere near it, and still it felt like it could see us, the way a when sees a person, even if a who never will. Inside the frame, something moved. Not an image, a sound, shaped like an object. A plastic bead rolled through air that wasn't quite air and clicked against the console. Then another. A scatter like distant rain finding the first gutter of a storm. "Where are they coming from?" my friend whispered. I leaned in. The frame held a small draft, a steadiness, like the breath you feel when you're whispering into a paper tube and you hear your own voice shaped. I let the rattle rest against the frame. The beads inside answered the loose beads outside, and for a second the sound felt whole, 2 halves of a toy saying yes through a square made for yes. From the hallway's seam, 2 taps. We swapped places again. The lamp dimmed a fraction, not the bulb. The presence of light in the room, like someone had cupped their hands around the glow and asked it to be a little smaller for now. Sound led, I reminded myself. I let the rattle sing 2 notes. Tap, tap. The frame answered with 2 of its own, but lower, like a harmony from a different room. Then 3 from the seam, then 3 from the window, then 3 from the frame. Ask, ask, ask. "What hour?" my friend breathed. "Here," I said. All 3 sources stilled at once, as if the room had nodded. The acrylic door warmed where it leaned. It didn't move. It wanted to. We picked it up together, not to carry it through, to hold it near the frame. The gasket kissed wood. Not a seal, just a touch the way 2 hands touch when they share an answer. The frame cooled. The seam cooled. The room decided to be itself again, in that slow way rooms have when they've finished being helpful. Something small slid from the acrylic's edge, through the gasket, and rested against my thumb. Paper. Receipt size. Block letters, careful. Office lights at 2:17. Register prints names as places. Car will ask. Do not give it a when or a who. Underneath, smaller, if the lot's lights go out, face each other, and trade the token without looking. If the roofline speaks, answer, here. We didn't need the proof anymore. We folded the paper into the map anyway, because keeping records is also a kind of respect. The seam along the foil eased shut, not gone, just resting its line. We breathed in the tidy, almost day hush of 2:28, that strange minute where the apartment thinks about being a bedroom. My friend poured water. We held the mugs and didn't drink. From the TV's black, a sound rose. Not taps, soft wheels. A cart's old squeak, one slow revolution, then still. We both looked without turning our necks. In the reflection, a corridor shimmered faintly, like heat on road. Office on one end, lot on the other, aisle numbers drifting like lazy stars. The reflection corridor had a door at the center with a taped sign. I didn't need to read it. I knew what it said. Ring. Wait. We didn't ring. We waited. 2 taps far. We swapped places without effort. It felt natural now, the way breath feels natural when you stop trying to remember how to do it. 3 taps near. We answered with rule. Don't open the big thing. The corridor in the glass brightened one click, the kind old lamps do. A figure moved within the reflection, wrong-shouldered and polite, walking along the roofline that had learned to pretend it was a hallway when it needed to be. It paused by the taped sign, raised a hand, set down a small square object on a table we couldn't see except as a shadow. The acrylic door warmed. We held it up to the TV, knowing it wouldn't seal. We did it anyway, like a hand lifted in a hello through thick glass in a museum. Something slid under the gasket and touched our fingers. Not paper this time. A square of plastic with a notch. A register key cap. The little cover managers pop off to replace a broken button. On its top, someone had printed 2 in tiny pen. On its underside, the faint imprint of a word that wasn't in English or maybe wasn't a word exactly. Just shapes that felt like yes. We set it beside the token. It made no sound. It didn't have to. Outside, the sedan's engine turned off. Lights stayed off, not gone, just listening. From the hall seam, a single tap, the end of a sentence. We turned no more. We let the apartment relax. The foil kept its line. The twine ladder leaned. The acrylic door cooled to the temperature of a room that had decided to be gentle. We slept because nothing else was being asked of us. When I woke again, it was 4:03, and the world had done that small dimensional change you only feel when night decides to pretend to be morning. I heard it before I saw it, a faint, steady tick, like a clock with confidence. Not the stove, not my watch. A different tick from the map. I stood and looked. The 417 token on the paper was vibrating, almost invisibly. Every 3 ticks, it moved 1 pencil width and then settled. Under it, a new line had written itself, RETURN. The pencil letters were darker than before. I pressed my finger to the token. It stilled. From the window, a soft, single knock. From the seam, a soft, single knock. From the TV's black, a soft, single knock. Not ask, not wait. More like, ready. I had the ridiculous sense of being taught to swim by quiet water. I looked at my friend. She was awake, eyes steady. 1 more breath in. 1 more breath out. We're close, she whispered. We nodded like people who had learned to make small agreements with rooms. At the very edge of hearing, out past the lot, past the store, a baby rattle rolled, slow, content, to a stop. Then from the hall seam and the window at the same time, 3 taps arrived in a single perfect chord. We raised the acrylic door together, and as the gasket warmed in our hands, the foil seam brightened like the thin smile of a lock, finally remembering what key it prefers. The apartment held its breath. The knob on our own front door clicked very soft, as if a hand on the other side had rested there not to enter, but to ask. We didn't turn. We didn't speak our names. From beyond the door, a voice we knew used my name like a question made of care. I answered with a place. Here, I said. The knob stilled, and in the small pause after that, when the room tasted like warm air and old paper, and the last note of a song that decides to keep echoing. Another sound rose, gentle and precise. 2 taps from outside the door, 2 taps from inside the seam, 2 taps from the TV's reflection. 6 notes in time. The 7th was waiting. We held the acrylic door up to the light, the gasket ready, the seam ready, our hands ready. And the apartment decided to show us which side would ask first. The 7th note waited. 2 taps outside the door, 2 taps inside the seam, 2 taps in the television's black. We held the acrylic door to the light until the gasket warmed in our hands. The apartment chose. A single soft tap touched the wood from the hallway side. Not urgent, announcing itself the way a minute does when it arrives on time. We didn't call names, we gave place. "Here," I said, steady. "Front door." By the light. The knob didn't turn. The lock didn't argue. From the seam came a breath of cooler air and a tone rising a half step as if asking us to answer with our part. We set the twine ladder beneath the patched square above the entry. We faced the lamp. We kept our shoulders square and our necks uninteresting. Tap, tap. The rattle's beads kissed plastic. The seam brightened like a drawn line learning to be a doorway again. "Carry the hour," my friend whispered, and we did, slipping the 417 token into the acrylic's edge so the gasket held it like a coin between fingers. The window we carried became a small, obedient square of glow, not on the door, not on the seam, between them, like a handshake that didn't rush either hand. From the door, 3 taps. From the seam, 3 taps. From the TV's reflection, 3 taps. Ask, ask, ask. We spoke the store's rule. Don't open the big thing. The front door decided to wait. The seam answered by widening just enough for a slip of paper to pass, warm from a hand that didn't show itself. Block letters. Set a door to carry the knocks. Face the light. Return. We had been turning all along, porch to pole, pole to door, door to desk, desk to mirror, mirror to map. Turn again, the word said. Turn once more, and let each turn close the loop that hasn't been closed in a while. Outside, the lot dimmed by a breath. Not off, just softer. From the far row, the sedan's engine came alive. Gentle, lights still off, patient. I felt the map on the table move faintly, pencil dark stitches settling where they belonged. The register tag on the ring with office lay calm as paper. We stepped together into our little geometry, frame, seam, door. I set the acrylic's warm edge to the foil. My friend stood at the door with her palm on the wood, not pushing, attending. 2 taps want a room, she said. I answered softly with the rattle, tap, tap. The knocks outside gathered themselves and flowed toward the acrylic, as if sound preferred to travel where it was expected. A hush, like old paper moving through a slot, filled the square between us. The seam let go of the slip it had been holding. This time it wasn't paper. A keycap, like the one the reflection had offered us before, square plastic with a notch. On its top, a tiny one in careful pen. On its underside, the small imprint of a shape that could have been letters once, softened by time. We didn't need keys for any lock in this house. We set the cap on the map beside the 2 we already had. 1, 2, numbers becoming a scale we could sing by. A tone rose from behind the seam, then rested. We breathed with it. The lamp by the couch dimmed 1 degree, and the television's black gathered a corridor again. The office glow now steady, the exit at the far end patient as a lighthouse that never sees its own beam. From beyond the door, a voice used my name. I answered as the rule asked, "Here, living room, by the window." The voice didn't repeat me. It accepted place in the calm way a person accepts water set down within reach. A quiet knock touched the acrylic from the seam side. 1, then 2, then 3. Ask completed. The sound went still. We unsealed the acrylic. The gasket let go with the softest sigh. The foil seam eased shut, not locked, not lost, just resting. We waited, facing the light. The apartment's noises backed away to give room. Then clearly from the lot, a polite request. 2 taps, far but accurate. Car body sound traveling through night like a careful echo. We stepped onto the porch. The street was inked but kind. A moth loved the lamp for a second, then remembered the dark had work to do. Across the rows, the sedan sat with lights off, engine a low breath. Not a person in a car. A when, the receipt had said. A time that hadn't arrived, idling in a shape that could wait. We didn't turn our necks. We gave place. Here, I said, by the light. The headlights blinked once. Not on, just a wink through tinted eyes. We lifted the rattle. Tap, tap. We walked like we'd forgotten something inside and gone out to fetch it from the night. Forward a few steps, then back to light, not offering the car our backs, not insisting either. A small ritual of presence. From the roofline, one soft knock. We answered properly this time, exactly as we'd been taught. Here, my friend said up to the dark edge. Not what hour, not who are you. Here. The roofline approved. A shape we'd been calling wrong-shouldered relaxed, and for a moment I understood it wasn't a figure. It was an arrangement. Chair turned to the wall, coat on a hook, an old rung ladder of twigs set under a patch, objects standing the way rules stand, so you won't forget them. At the lot's center, one pole lamp raised its light a shade, making a small island between store and street. The sedan rolled a car length forward and stopped, not entering the island, not crossing into light with lights off. It knew its own rules. We held our ground in glow. 3 taps touched the porch rail from no hands at all. We spoke the store's rule so the porch could hear it too. Don't open the big thing. The door behind us, our door, stayed shut with manners. The seam inside zipped itself into a silver thread, content. The car gave a new sound. A headlight relay clicked, and both lamps rose to low beams. Not blinding, present. Lights on meant name your place, the register had printed. We had. The lot gave its answer nonetheless. The sedan eased along the row, nose toward the exit. It paused where our map had once marked an X for my space. It paused under the stitches drawn at the roofline. Then it paused one last time at the edge of the street, a blink and miss hesitation, like someone finishing a thought. When it turned, it did so without hurry, and drove away into the kind of dark that is only distance, not a who, a when that had arrived. We listened to quiet check itself. We listened to the roofline unshoulder, becoming simply the top of a building again. We listened to the porch light hum a little prouder for no reason at all. Inside, the register receipt printer in the office we didn't own, wherever it sat, in whatever room the reflections had been lending us, word. Not here, there. But the sound reached us anyway, like rain you can smell on a street you can't see. On our table, the map crisped at one edge, paper tightening as pencil settled. A new line had appeared across the bottom in the square hand we knew. Return credited. Below it, smaller, keep ladder under windows that aren't. If 2 taps wait, give them a room. If 3 taps ask, answer with place. We stood by the foil and touched it once, palm flat. Warm, quiet. The seams stayed visible, a gentle silver scar the apartment, and we had agreed to keep. The acrylic door rested by the coats, content at last to be simply available. We didn't tidy away the twine ladder. We leaned it where it belonged, under the patched square above the entry, a small shape that meant we learned. On the console, the rattle sat beside its single loose bead, 2 halves that no longer needed to prove they matched. When I shook it once, barely, The beads answered like distant rain, remembering a roof. We slept. Morning didn't fix anything because nothing was broken. The street wore its ordinary. The store sign flickered the way signs do when their job is to be bright, long after you've learned the path by memory. Adam rang up someone else's plastic forks and someone else's heavy-duty foil and gave good advice about lasagna pans. We took the map down from the table and taped it inside the pantry door, like calendars and childhood growth marks and emergency numbers. Paper belongs where hands go often. The token stayed on its corner. The office card and register tag lived in a small dish by the keys like pocket change that has earned its seat. Days passed that felt like days. Night came polite. At 2:17, sometimes nothing happened at all, which was its own kindness. Other nights, 2 taps waited, and we gave them a room. A panel opened. We exchanged a note for a bead. A lane of light stitched itself from porch to pole and back. A rattle laughed without sound in a place we couldn't see and didn't need to. Once, weeks later, the convex mirror in aisle 4 caught me alone. No blur at the mouth, no band of foil in the glass, just my small self and a store that had chosen to be normal at that hour. I lifted my hand to the bowl of reflection, because you do that, sometimes, after practice. 2 fingers, not all 5, a quiet hello. The mirror didn't tap back. It didn't need to. A faint square of glow inside the office, visible only in the circular scrap of the monitor feed the mirror loved to keep, came on and then off again like a nod. I bought a roll of heavy-duty foil I didn't need, paid $1, and kept the change because a note once told me to. That night at home, the foil on the wall caught dusk and held it so our faces looked younger for a breath. We thanked it by leaving it exactly where it was. And sometimes, late, when the porch light hums and the fridge chooses to rest, I hear it. Not a knock. A small, content rattle, beads turning once inside their clear world, the sound a baby makes when sleep has chosen them at last. If you visit, I'll show you the map. How the pencil lines darkened where the roots got used. How the stitches along the store's roof line softened into mere hatch marks. How the word return printed itself smaller each month until it remembered how to be part of other words. I'll teach you the rules if you want them. They are simple. They don't ask for blood or bravery. They ask for manners. Don't open the big thing. Walk by light. Keep your neck uninteresting. Carry taps. Answer with place. Learn how to give a door to a sound. Remember that some cars are when, not who. And if a coat looks like a person on a roofline, let it be a rule standing up so you won't forget. Now and then, at 2:17, we stand very still and face each other and trade the token without looking. Not because the lights go out anymore, because sometimes, to keep a door kind, it helps to practice. And when 2 taps wait, we give them a room. When 3 taps ask, we answer with here. The apartment approves. The lot is gentle. The window that isn't will always be under the patched square above the entry, with the small ladder resting and ready, patient as a spine. The 7th note, the one we waited for, turned out not to finish a song. It began the part you hum to yourself without noticing on quieter weeks. A tune you can carry in your pocket that knows how to carry you back. If you place your ear to the foil right now, you won't hear anything dramatic. But you might feel a breath, faint, like a room deciding to be kind one more time. And if you listen past that, deep enough to hear the house's small heart, you'll hear what we do. Knock, knock, 2 taps, waiting politely. We are home. We give them a room,